Sound is working fine. Thank
Fantastic.
you, Simone. Julia, lovely.
Okay.
Great. Oh, smashing, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Right, so I think we'll make a start. First of all, some quick introductions. My name is Mel. I'm from Big Society Capital, and I'm going to be taking part in the webinar today. I'm Social Sector Engagement Director, which basically means talking to social enterprises and charities around the UK about what social investment is and isn't. Let's go over to Kieran.
Hello everyone, my name is Kieran. I'm the project manager for Good Finance, so I manage the website and the initiative as well.
I'm Jessica Brown. I'm the Connect Fund manager, and I'm very pleased to be joining both Mel and Kieran today for a joint webinar. So welcome.
And I'm Liz Hayes. I'm the assistant manager for the Connect Fund, so I work alongside Jessica, and I'm very pleased to be here as well.
Okay, so just run you very briefly through what this session is going to contain, and then I'm going to hand over to Jessica. So we thought what we would cover today is a little bit about what's on offer and how it fits in with the Connect Fund. Kieran's going to take you through Good Finance and the webinar, the website in more detail. And we're going to try and cover a practical case study, because we know the thing that people like most is to hear about how it's worked with another organisation. There will be plenty of time for Q&A. I can see that some of you have already used the Q&A facility to tell us the sound is working well. So please do drop us questions as they come up on the Q&A, and then we'll use those at the end to try and answer those. But without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Jessica first to set the scene.
Excellent. So I just wanted to welcome you all today. Mel and I, along with Kieran, wanted to touch base on some of the resources and tools that are available more widely in the market. I just wanted to give you a brief snapshot of where things are with the Connect Fund. And then I also wanted to just outline what we hope you'll get out of the webinar today and how it might be useful to you. Am I clicking down?
Just bear with us for a moment.
Excellent. So hopefully you can see this slide. This is a neat new infographic we have to show the spread of grants that we've now made. We are at a point where we've had 2 rounds of funding, and we've made 42 grants for a total of 1.8 million. And you can see across the 9 regions of England where our grants are currently. And we've really tried to make sure that we have a widespread representation of grantees, and we're very excited about the range of projects that we have now. We're in a really good place. Thank you. This is the range of ideas that have come forward. As you know, the Connect Fund has emphasized collaboration, partnership, and new ideas that will be open source for the market. So this is where the 42 grants fall in terms of the themes that they're trying to address. And as you know, you hopefully will have received a save the date. We'll be having our first learning community event on the 8th of October. So if you haven't already registered for that, please do, because that will be an opportunity to learn more about each of the projects, to meet people face to face. But the purpose of today's webinar is for Big Society Capital and Good Finance to tell you a bit more about all of the work that they've already done, a lot of it prior to the Connect Fund, helping to build resources and tools that can help advance social investment in the market. So one of the key themes for the Connect Fund is to avoid duplication. And you all may have heard me say that we don't expect you to produce an output unless it's going to add value in the market. We want to make sure that everything is, as the name suggests, that it's all connected and that you're aware of the resources that are already out there. So for the bulk of the time, I'm going to hand over to Mel and to Kieran to talk about the resources and tools that they've developed that are available to you, and hopefully they can also be a point of contact and a resource as you move forward with your projects. Thank you.
Okay, so it was very interesting actually, as Jessica just put up that previous slide, and I worked out, I think, of the 8 different areas that the grants fall into, but at least 6 of them would be common things that we've been working on in this area. So I've put down things like capacity building, data sharing networks, developing skills, templates, and market information. It's all things that Kira and I feel passionately about trying to make sure that we don't duplicate, that we develop those skills, and we find ways to try and make practical ways that we can help the sector. I have to say, has been a little bit of a challenge for an organisation like Big Society Capital, who is a wholesale investor. But one of the most practical things that we've done is to work collaboratively with a range of other sector providers to create Good Finance. And Kieran's going to talk to you a little bit more about that. Part of the reason that we wanted to do this was to try and give you a better understanding of how the things that we're currently doing in the market might support, interject, or help some of the projects and the delivery that you're looking to do. So I'm going to come at this from the perspective of how do you understand whether social investment is relevant or applicable. And that goes actually for both social enterprises and charities that we would call frontline organisations at delivery, but equally applies to infrastructure or network organisations, either in terms of your own organisation or in terms of the members and the organisations that you work with. One of the things that I've spent some time reflecting on is that in many ways, part of the challenge for infrastructure organisations is that social investment was less relevant to them than perhaps it was to their members. And I can say that firsthand, having run a social enterprise infrastructure organisation for 5 years, previously to working for Big Society Capital. So in some cases, it's about organisations, particularly support organisations, catching up, or perhaps being able to provide service beyond the market leaders or the early innovators. But also we know that for any organisations providing support, there isn't money available to try and do this stuff on top of what you already have to do. We also understand that social investment is a very small part that will only be relevant to some organisations at some part. So one of the ways that we've tried to address this is by looking at the topics of resilience and sustainability. So if any organisation is thinking about resilience and sustainability, then some of the options they would need to think about are around income generation and revenue models. And then the bit that I get very passionate about is that we probably need to talk beyond funding, but we need to think about funding and finance. Not because we are in a position where we want to sell social investment. I hope we've moved beyond that. There was a lot of unhelpful myth and hype in the early days about what repairable finance is. But we do feel passionate that people should have enough information so that they can decide whether this is a relevant tool in order to help deliver impact. So I'm going to take you through some slides and then we'll be able to context how they fit in. But I'm really going to concentrate more on the different interventions that we have, how they work and how they might support what we're trying to do. So we talk about social investment very much as just being another tool. I often say to people that come to events that I run that shouldn't go away thinking that social investment is a thing in its own right, a standalone thing. It's just another tool in the toolbox. So it's for you to decide when and where it sits alongside trading, donations, bank finance, contracts and payments by results contracts. A lot of this information we expect that you will know. So I'm going to very quickly pass over these and we can take any questions later on. We also help organisations to think about when they'll be thinking about repairable finance around these 4 areas. Again, not unsurprisingly, around buying an asset, maintaining cash flow, kickstarting a business, and growth and innovation. So those are how we tend to group the interventions that we work on. How we started to think about this is we have a range of things that we do. Some of them are online, and Kieran's going to take you through those for Good Finance, and some of them are offline. And one of the things that we've tried to do is to bring together the interactions that we have through Big Society Capital to support and complement the work of Good Finance. And whilst we know that the vast majority of new creations, whether they're project outputs, we're very much steered towards online because they're efficient and they're accessible. We also know that our sector learns best by learning from peers, and there is no replacement for having face-to-face intervention and having the opportunity to meet people. So it's very important that we're able to maintain an offer on both fronts. So let me talk to you a little bit about this knowledge journey, and this was where I really wanted to spend more time. So one of the things that we wanted to do is find ways for people to be able to interact around social investment. And as I don't live in London and feel very passionate about the fact that we need to be able to have this conversation around the country, we've introduced a format called Let's Talk Good Finance. So these are small, informal events designed to try and help people get comfortable with the concept of what social investment is. It's designed for organisations who know very little about social investment. They probably keep hearing the words, and this will definitely be relevant to organisations who are part of voluntary and community sector networks. It used to be the case sort of 5 years ago, if I was trying to present around social investment and I was talking to a voluntary and community sector audience, if I'm really honest, if I had 3 people in the front row, locked and barred the door, I was probably doing quite well, because after all, here I am talking about money that you have to repay with interest. Perhaps didn't seem that attractive at that stage. So it's about for organisations who know very little, but think they definitely need to know more. It's also for organisations who definitely worked out that they're going to need some capital somewhere to help them achieve what they want to for their organisation, who are actively trading. And it can be for organisations, less so, but for organisations who are perhaps looking to just meet people who can lend to them. So Let's Talk Good Finance. We've now done 32 of these events around the country, from Scotland to, yes, just about as far south in Cornwall as you can go. I certainly get around on my, I don't have rail miles, it's a shame really, but get around. And the idea is that these are targeted for about 30-35 people. They're supposed to be very peer-led. There are no daft questions. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to present this as a format is that we actively look to work with networks around the country or with partners. So it could well be somebody that's delivering a Connect Fund project to host the Let's Talk Good Finance events. So we are happy to help with the format and the speakers and to come along. But we open source all the agendas, all the briefing for the speakers, because we know that this format works really well. And in the next week, we're about to publish a blog and also all the findings that we've had from almost 2 years of doing Let's Talk Good Finance, all the things that people have told us. So the thing that I'm still really proud of is that 100% of the people who applied to the survey say that they would recommend somebody else to attend a Let's Talk Good Finance. And the other thing that is really important is we always have a Hear from a Peer slot. So we have a social enterprise or charity who's taken on repairable financing, come along and talk about their journey. So if you like, the warts and all. And that's probably never resonated more with me than when we ran an event in Nottingham. We always ask everybody to come along to introduce themselves, say why they've come along, what organisation they're from. And a lady in Nottingham told me that she'd come to Let's Talk Good Finance to find out what the social investors won't tell her. So there is definitely something here about peer experience, and we actively encourage the audience to ask those questions, like, what was the most difficult thing? So there's lots of learnings that we've got from this, like it always takes longer than you think, and due diligence isn't particularly pleasant. So all of those learnings will be out there and going to share. So we're currently planning our autumn programme of Let's Talk Good Finance events, and we have spoken to a couple of Connect Fund project delivery organisations. But again, we'll share afterwards the links to all of these different interventions that we have. And if it's something that you think that would either complement your programme for you to run with us, then we're happy to look at that. Or if you'd like to take the format and use the open source framework for running the event yourselves, then we're quite happy to do that as well and to help promote and support those events. So let me just move on briefly to the other events and other interactions that we have that are offline. We will help and support other people's social investment events and look to list those on Let's Talk Good Finance. We have a campaign called Get Informed, Social Investment for Boards, which very much came out of charities and social enterprises that had been through social investment themselves, and also social investment managers, fund managers, who said that deals often fall down late in the day when it gets to the board, and then the board get cold feet really around the level of risk that they're taking on. So we wanted to find a way to try and help trustees and non-exec directors who in our sector are volunteers and don't get paid for the time and already probably have enough demands. How do we help them to get comfortable with this new thing and the level of risk? So we have a range of different faces of the campaign. They are not social investment professionals. They are chairs, chief execs, FDs, treasurers of social enterprises and charities from around the country who tell their stories and their social investment journey. Not all positive, because we wanted to present a very balanced picture. Again, it's not a sales campaign, it's an information campaign. So we have a range of free films that you can download from our YouTube channel, and you can show them to your board at any time. They have well over 1,000 views to date, so we believe that they're a really useful tool. But probably the biggest offer that Get Informed has to make is we offer free mentoring for an individual board member who wants to explore whether social investment is an option for their organisation, probably alongside the chief exec or somebody from the operational team. We've actually matched 80 different organisations with board mentors now. So again, if you feel that the mentoring programme is something that might be useful to support your project delivery, or we actually have in one geography, we are working with a Connect Fund applicant to create like a little mini version of Get Informed, which will be just for their geography. So that's possible as well. We're really keen to work with local CBS and social enterprise networks. One of the reasons, if I'm honest, that we created Let's Talk Good Finance, as well as providing that support for social enterprises and charities, one of our aims is to increase the knowledge and confidence of local networks so they can better signpost around social investment. And I think our case study will be a great example of that. And then lastly, in our offline, we talk about Good Finance Live, which is our new event. We're going to be piloting this in the Northeast in September the 27th. And the idea is that if Let's Talk Good Finance is the place you go to do the early understanding about whether it's right for you, then Good Finance Live is for you when you're further along the journey. And the idea is that we will bring 10 to 12 social investors into a room. So if you are actively looking for capital, rather than having to trek to London or trek around the country to meet all of these different social investors, you can come into your space and talk to them on your terms. We'll also be having more of those here from the peer stories and updates from other organisations like Power to Change, Community Share Unit, maybe the Connect Fund, who will also come and talk about complementary programmes. I think, other than, did you mention podcasts or shall I just do podcasts? Yeah, so then the only other couple of things to just mention are, as well as our offline interventions, we've also taken those opportunities to produce them online. So the Let's Talk Good Finance events, we have a range of podcasts where we've recorded the Hear from a Peer speaker. So if you can't actually get to the event, but for somebody you're really interested to hear their story, you're able to find those on our podcast channel. And there's a range of case studies that I'm sure Kieran is going to cover those. So I'm going to hand over to Kieran to talk more about Good Finance.
Thanks very much, Mel. So today I just want to talk a little bit about the background to Good Finance, particularly the Good Finance website and project initiative that sits alongside that, but also most importantly, our plans for the future, so what we see coming next over the next 6 months to a year. So I think always good to start here. What is Good Finance? And I'm sure many of you already know, first and foremost, it's a website to help social sector organisations, so social enterprises, charities and community groups, better navigate what we often see as quite a complex world of social investment. But what is also in line with that is a collaborative initiative. So there are a number of organisations who came together a couple of years ago now with a shared commitment, and that commitment is about improving access to information for social sector organisations when they're looking to navigate social investment. So led by Big Society Capital and Access, and funded by them as well with a bit of funding from DCMS. There's also in partnership with a number of key organisations who represent the social sector, so the Connect Fund, but also NCDO Locality and Social Enterprise UK as the key membership bodies in this space, and some social investment specialists like Pioneers Post and Fit Finance as well, who form our steering group for good finance. So just quickly on our mission and objectives. So our key mission for good finance would really be about being about the trusted source of information, and also being as open as possible with everything that we do, ensuring that we're transparent with the market. But also, as I mentioned, it's about being collaborative. So being collaborative in the sense that it's not just one organisation that drives this, but it's a key project that spins across the whole sector and works across organisations who share that same commitment. We also have a user-centred principle. So I'll talk a little bit about this in a moment, but the website was developed with charities and social enterprises. We always try to keep this philosophy in everything that we do, in terms of asking what it is that charities and social enterprises want to see from different interventions, from projects, from tools. And then lastly, our last mission is really around what the website is trying to achieve. So it's about improving knowledge, helping them to make organisations make informed decisions, and also connecting, so helping organisations connect to the right investors, particularly around their shared values. So just a little bit about where it came from. I think it's always useful for some context. So it was about 2 years ago now that we, a number of us came together to try and address this need. And what we were really trying to do was we understood from talking directly to social enterprises and charities, but also from investors working with frontline organisations, that actually it's a really difficult space to navigate. And there was a lot of issues that organisations faced when it came to understanding what social investment was about, how it differed to other forms of funding, whether it's right for them, and where to go to access it. And actually what we found is it was quite isolating for a number of social enterprises and charities. And I think some of these quotes really encapsulate it nicely, that actually everyone except us knew what it was all about, and it felt quite lonely when they were looking to seek investment. And this was also backed up by a number of reports, not least from Social Enterprise UK and NCDO, but also from the Design Council and Cabinet Office, really pointed to a need, and that need was about addressing this barrier that organisations face when it comes to social investment. So we decided we wanted to do something about it, and our hypothesis at the time was that actually a website could possibly be one way of addressing it, complemented with other interventions. And so we came together as a steering group and decided that we were going to try and potentially build a website, but first we need to understand what it is that organisations wanted from such a resource. So we went up and down the country, working with a service design agency, conducting both qualitative and quantitative research through interviews, one-on-one calls, workshops, really getting out to all the different regions to help understand what are the key barriers and things, challenges that they face when it comes to investment and finance. And this is what we found, that first and foremost, absolutely, that this is a problem, and that a website could be one key way of addressing it. But also that if we were going to build a website, there needed to be a number of things that we need to do in order to break down some of those challenges. And I think this quote is a nice one from a social entrepreneur that kind of shows the real challenge that's faced between these two competing models, and that's that stars haven't aligned to allow corporate financiers to work with social enterprises. What that was really saying is that there's this clear friction that currently exists between investors and the financial world and social sector organisations. There were 5 areas that were identified. I'm just going to talk very briefly on these, because I think it's quite interesting and important to look at them in more detail. So the first area was around language, particularly that jargon is very commonplace, and that can be particularly isolating and difficult for organisations. I'm sure that comes to no surprise to many of you who work in social investment. The second is on influence, that actually social sector organisations are very heavily influenced by others around them. So this really pointed to the need for case studies and showing stories, and not just where social investment has worked, but also the warts and all journey of where it's been more challenging. The third area on knowledge, this is probably the biggest one. Again, surely no surprise that actually the knowledge gap is really vast, and organisations need to know what it is, how they can access it, the different types that are available, the key things you need to understand before even coming to social investment. And then mindset. So this was a big area as well, that actually there's often established mindsets that are quite difficult to shift. So quite a grant mentality by a number of key groups. And then actually organisations and users really need to understand the broad funding spectrum of where social investment sits within that. And then lastly, connection. So this plays into that last objective of what Good Finance is trying to do, and it's about connecting to the right social investors based on shared values. And acknowledging that actually we live in a face-to-face world, and actually social enterprises and charities need to need to meet social investors face-to-face and have that dynamic, and that a website needs to be able to facilitate that and not replace it. So what we did, we brought together all that research, we merged that with previous research, and then we prioritised as a steering group on the kind of key things we wanted to focus on, and we went back up and down the country in workshops, creating workshops with those different organisations. And they then helped us to build this prototype, and this prototype was kind of the first wireframes of the website that you see today, and that's all the tools and resources that you see on that actually came from those organisations. And we went out and tested, iterated and retested, and did that a number of times until we were happy with the final product. And then in April of last year, we launched. So we populated the website with content that existed from across this space, and particularly on the Capital website, Access and others. And these are the different tools that are on there. So if you visited the website, you will have seen that firstly there's structured content. So this is very much outlining what social investment is all about, key things you need to consider, the different types of social investment. We also have a diagnostic tool. So this is for the persona, what we call the go-getter, which is a type of user who perhaps really your kind of tech-savvy social entrepreneur who really needs to understand, is this right for me? If not, why not? If so, where should I go next? So that's what that tool does. We then have one of the most popular parts of the site, the Investors Advisors Directory. So this is for your more business savvy organisation, perhaps someone who is ready to take on social investment or has taken it on in the past. And this is about connecting to the social investors that exist in the UK market. And now over 60 organisations listed on that directory, and you can filter according to your different financial needs or your geography or social issue area. We have case studies, so as much as possible trying to populate with new case study examples of organisations who've taken on investment, not just the positive stories, but also some of the challenges that organisations have faced. We also have latest events and news. So as Mel talked about, we have Let's Talk Good Finance events, but also we exhibit and speak at a number of different events across the country. So you can find out whether there are particular events near you on that part of the website. And then lastly, impact measurement tools, acknowledging that it's really important that social sector organisations fully understand about impact management, impact reporting and measurement before considering social investment. So what's our impact been so far? I mean, we've been pretty pleased. Today it's still early days, obviously, just over a year since we launched. So far we've had over 40,000 people visit the website and had a positive feedback from social sector organisations, which is great. Both in person but also from a survey that we're doing. And we'll continue to make sure that we're surveying and we're always improving what we're providing from the website by talking to social sector organisations. So that's a little bit on the website. I think when we launched, we were cognizant that it's very easy to launch a website but not be aware that actually you need to have a full marketing strategy that sits alongside it. There's no point in spending all the money on this website if you can't actually get the organisations who it's meant for, so social enterprise and charities, to use it. So we were very aware of that. So what we did last year and what we're continuing to do is partner up with a number of key bodies through contracts to help us promote good finance, both the website, both our objectives, but also new content that we're always creating, so case studies and videos, etc. So these are the organisations that we're working with who are helping us to promote through their social media channels and via email as well. In complementary to the website, as I said, it is an initiative, and we need to always be making sure that we're creating resources that are current and fresh. So a lot of what we're doing is about new case studies. So these are listed here are all the new case studies that have been added to the website since January. So these are content-based case studies, and you can, they're dotted all around the country, different investment amounts, different product types, and really trying to showcase the breadth and width of what social investment is all about. We also have new case study videos that we're creating on an ongoing basis as well, and you can find those on our YouTube channel. But if you're interested in these case studies, or you have indeed case studies yourself that you're aware of or that you're part of, then do please let us know, because we're always interested in publishing those on the case study portal. Webinar. So obviously we're in a webinar here, but what we decided a couple of months ago was actually to launch a new webinar series. So it came out of the user research that we did last year, and also from feedback that we've had from people at events and previous events that we've done, which is actually that webinars are a really good tool and a really good way of kind of replicating that event style one-to-one interaction, but in obviously the comfort of your own home, and they have the added benefit of being recorded. So we launched a couple of months ago a new webinar series. We've done 3 to date so far. First on funding and social investment for community groups, one on trading to become sustainable, the School for Social Entrepreneurs, and another one on impact measurement. And we'll do all these webinars looking as much as possible for Good Finance to collaborate with other organisations who have a speciality in a particular area. So you'll be able to, we had some technical difficulties, but you should be able to rewatch these webinars in the coming weeks on our YouTube channel as well. So they'll be uploaded soon. Good Finance Live, Mel talked about this previously, so I won't spend too much time on this, but it's just to say that obviously this is very much, again, a collaboration between organisations. It's a big event happening in Northern England, our pilot event under the Good Finance brand, working with Von as a local delivery partner, but funded by Big Society Capital and Access. And as Mel mentioned, it's really about bringing demand and supply together. We're looking to have hopefully over 100 social sector organisations in the room, 10 to 15 social investors, and it should be a fantastic event. So that's happening on the 27th of September. Now just on to, I'm just going to be finishing up, and just a couple more slides, and I just want to finish on a few developments that are happening with the website. So we were always aware that you launch a website, but actually what you need to do is make sure that it's continuing to become better and better and iterating and ensuring that it's responding to market needs and being as advanced portal as possible. So one of the key pieces of development that we're doing over the next 4 to 6 months is on the Investor and Advisor directory. And really it came out of the user research that we need to make this, we're aware that we need to make this part of the website really a sophisticated tool for social sector organisations when it comes to them comparing the market and finding the right social investor for them. So we're making a number of changes currently in terms of sort of design tweaks, or what we'll be looking to do over the next 3 to 5 months is looking to make it more advanced in terms of linking to case studies for investors to be able to publish their fund information, making it better filterability. So we're doing a number of changes there, and currently a number of technical legal sort of barriers that we need to navigate here. So it is still a bit TBC, but hopefully by the end of this year we will have worked a way through those. And then lastly, kind of an exploration piece that we're doing on this section of the website is by working with a couple of other organisations, the Social Impact Investors Group of Foundations and Trusts, as some of you might be aware of, the SIG group, looking to pilot out a kind of reverse market platform. So this is about social enterprises and charities actually posting up themselves or their projects for investors to find and for investors to invest into. So we're going to be working closely with them to see what role Good Finance can have in that and what role we can play in the future. And then also partner resource packs. So this is bringing together some of the slides and things that Mel was talking about earlier in terms of the journey, but also conscious that there are lots of infrastructure bodies, there are lots of groups of you up and down the country who perhaps want to present about social investments, but don't necessarily have the resources or tools to do that. So what we want to try and do is make that easier for you by providing a pack of customizable slides on what social investment is all about. So you can pick and choose those if you're presenting to a particular audience, as well as a pack of case study slides as well. And also that knowledge journey that Mel showed before, have that available. So if you are an organisation, you can work out where you are on that stage of the journey. So now that's all from me. So I'm going to hand back to Mel, who's going to talk a little bit about VON as a case study.
Yeah, so we thought that probably the easiest way to take all the bits that we talked about and make them real is to just talk about our work with VON. So I'm going to go back, it's almost 2 years now, when I was relatively new in the job, about 6 months in the job, and had some of these ideas which we wanted to test, and we were looking for partners. And I met VON, which stands for Voluntary Organisations Voluntary Organisations Network Northeast, I'll get my words right, and I went along to them, had an idea that we wanted to do some stuff regionally, met with their then Chief Executive, Jane, and Carol, their Deputy Chief Executive, who's just taken over, and tested some ideas with them, particularly because at that stage we were having a fair amount of success of working with social enterprise networks, but we had very limited success with working with voluntary and community sector groups. And what was really refreshing with VON is they said, look, we think there's starting to be some appetite from some of our members around this subject. We're really willing to learn, but we have very limited resources, pretty much no knowledge, but we're really keen to partner. And that was where we started. So we trialled the Let's Talk Good Finance format in the Northeast. We worked with VON and also with Social Enterprise Acumen, which is a business support organisation based in the Northeast. We managed to get a small amount of match funding for the initiative. So for the Let's Talk Good Finance events, we usually have a budget of £500 to pay to our host organisation to run the event. But because we were piloting, we wanted to try a sort of more intensive period. So we did 6 events, whereas usually in a regional area, we only do 3 in a year. The reason that I wanted to tell you that is because what was great working with VON is that we started, like with Good Finance, with a format that we thought would work. But what we did was we worked with them, listening to the people that attended the event, so the social enterprises, charities and voluntary and community sector groups, and we iterated the programme. So a good example of a piece of learning is when we did the original format of the event, Big Sight Capital went first. Now we go last on the event, on the agenda, because actually we realised that it's much easier to respond to what the audience want rather than come up with a set pattern, if you like. So we're just able to really reflect based on what the audience's needs are. We've also learned that having, I suppose, fairly impressive plenary speakers isn't what really people want, not because they're not great speakers, but often they start to talk in language. I know I've sat in a fair amount of conferences where people start talking about liquidity and mezzanine debt, and I've sort of wondered what how relevant it is to me running my social enterprise at the time. So again, we've steered away from that and just kept it to having 2 social investors, different ones each time, so that we could understand what they do. Again, what VON helped us to do is to shape the brief for the social investors. So we're quite strict with them now. We don't let them have loads of really techie slides with loads of words on. We say, come with 3 pictures of case studies of people that you've invested in and talk about what the money has done, because that's what people really care about. So working with VON helped us to iterate what Let's Talk Good Finance looks like and gave us the template then to go and run this across the whole of the country. So it was working with them that helped us do that. We then moved on in our relationship with VON. I think this is a really good idea of how a relationship becomes transactional in both ways. So VON started a Chief Executives Network, and one of the things that Chief Executives asked for in the Northeast was to put social investment on the agenda. And what I was really pleased about was by the time that happened, VON didn't need me to make the introductions to the social investors around them because they already have that network. So what working with VON has done is strengthened their knowledge and also their appetite to work in this area. So they're confident to be able to signpost their members. to embed social investment into their events and also to work with us individually. So moving on from that very successful relationship, a number of other interventions have happened. So we're going to be trialling, part of the reason for trialling the pilot for Good Finance Live in the North East is because of the strength of our relationship with Ron. And again, what we're really keen to do is to work out whether what we've planned is the best way to run the event. We're quite open to changing it. We'll be looking for hosts then to take the pilot forward and to run it, because the idea is that maybe do one in the northeast and then one in the southwest. The idea is to do 2 or 3 in a year in different regional locations, again, to stop people having to traipse all the way into the centre of London, because to make events work in London, you tend to need at least 200 people, and then it becomes a very different animal in terms of an event. We want to keep it very peer-led again. So we're going to be trying that with Von because of their knowledge, their expertise, and how they built their networks. But I think also our early work was one of the contributing factors to Von applying to the Connect Fund to flesh out that work. And again, what they've done is pulled a number of partners into that, including Social Enterprise Acumen and also the Community Foundation, another key player in this space. And alongside their work to create a North East social investors network, they've also created a North East funders forum. So again, bringing the trusts and foundations together. And I attended one of those meetings back in June, and we've had some real interest from the funders forum about how they can work alongside social investors, either to bring blended capital, so part grant and part loan, and not to create those two things separately, how they can provide support, so in a sort of grant plus way, so using some of their grant to help organisations from thinking about taking on repairable finance. And also we have some level of appetite from that group to learn from trusts and foundations who've actually made social investments. And it's from that group we've had the request to try and bring together a sort of little learning programme for the trusts and foundations about social investment, but also to potentially create a mini version of Get Informed Social Investment for boards to help those trusts and foundations help their boards think about taking the appetite and risk. So you've got this whole sort of virtuous circle, I think, of working with an organisation who definitely had the right mindset, but very little knowledge, capacity and expertise, to actually now having an organisation that in the North East, that if I got stranded on a train to Newcastle, it takes me about 3 and a bit hours, and I couldn't get there, Carol would be just fine to do these events. And that's perfect, that's the perfect scenario. What we are looking to do is to work with infrastructure organisations and potentially the national infrastructure organisations so that they can help us expand the amount of Let's Talk Good Finance events, because one of the things that we're finding now is that we are responding very much to organisations coming forward and saying, actually, we think there's appetite, we'd like to run this event with you. And I know I've had a conversation with several Connect Fund applicants and other voluntary community sector networks around the country who are keen to get this item on the agenda. And again, coming very much from the perspective of, this isn't going to solve everybody's issues, this isn't going to replace grant. There are times when it isn't applicable, but actually we've probably moved beyond the time where we can ever hope to go back to being fully grant funded. So knowing about social investment, all of the different types, I fully admit to, when I was running my social enterprise, understanding the concept of repair finance, but being completely mind blown when people start talking about all of the different terminologies of financial instruments and what's the difference between a social impact bond and a bond and community shares and a secured loan. So even for somebody like me working in this space, I still consider myself to be a social entrepreneur rather than a social investor, having a tool like Good Finance to help you understand some of those things has been a great tool. And I think the last thing I would say about Von is, now I no longer have to prompt them to cover things that we put out. They will often email me and say, seeing you put out a blog, or I think this would be really interesting to our membership, can we replicate it? And of course the answer is yes. If you think it's useful to your membership, then please go ahead. So I would say that our relationship with VON has developed beyond just working with us. So they're working with Connect and a range of other partners. But I clearly feel that social investment is on their radar, part of their agenda, and embedded as a small part of what they do. We never expect it to be more than that, but we absolutely feel that their members and the people that they work with get the opportunity to understand how social investment fits within the wider landscape of funding and finance. And actually, that's the perfect scenario. So I thought we're going to move over to questions and answers. I'll let Kieran copy this. I'll just do some summary before we move
Yeah,
on.
just quickly before we move on to Q&A. So a couple of actions, if you haven't done this already, I think it would be really worth signing up to the Good Finance newsletter. So you can find that through that link, or just by going to the homepage and clicking the newsletter button. Also following us on social media. A lot of our kind of new content, events and things are publicised through our Twitter account. So do follow us on Twitter. As Mel talked about the Let's Talk Good Finance events, they're also open for people to attend. So do come and go and attend a local event. You can find them at the new event schedule in, I think, in the coming months.
There are some already.
Some are already by following that link. Obviously, visiting the website, as I'm sure hopefully you've done already. And then lastly, visiting our YouTube channel as well, where we have new case study videos.
Over to the Q&A panel.
Great.
Okay, so I'm going to finish with a couple of asks, but in the meantime, let's have.
Shall I read this one out?
Yeah.
Paul from LGBT Consortium. Really love the work you've done with VON. Everything you've talked about seems geographically focused. We'd love to have a conversation about also engaging thematically. We are the LGBT umbrella body and right at the start of a journey, but think there's a great opportunity for engaging communities of interest too. So much we could learn from their journey. Not really a question, sorry.
Okay, well actually, question and comment, which is really good, which is, number one, we're absolutely happy to connect you to VON and to talk about their journey, so you can hear it from them rather than from us. But actually, on the thematic side, good point, and actually, I have something to add there. So, Let's Talk Good Finance, we originally started them geographically so that people could understand, for instance, with the social investors, we make a point of trying to take both national investors who don't have regional managers or offices so that people can understand that they do cover their geography and you get a chance to speak to them, as well as taking local investors. But we have also done some thematic Let's Talk Good Finance. So we have done one around arts, culture and heritage, and on the Let's Talk Good Finance pages, you will hear both the podcast from the Hear From a Peer speaker and be able to have a look at the case study slide pack that we produced. We've also done one around physical sports and well-being. Excuse me. And again, we have both the podcast and the slides available from those. We have a couple of approaches for our Let's Talk Good Finance programme in the autumn. So we will be doing one around homelessness, working with an organisation. That will be London-based, but nationally open. Funnily enough, we haven't done any Let's Talk Good Finance in London. We've been steering outside, but we have a request to do one internally. So yes, we are happy to work thematically as well. Basically, all we ask is that you believe that there is enough appetite to run an event and enough audience, and then we'll see what we can do together.
So we have another question as well that I just wanted to interject at this point to say, from a Connect Fund perspective, part of this has been very, very helpful because it shows you how different actors in the market are working together, and we want to continue to support you as Connect Fund grantees on that journey, and that's in particular what the case study of VON is meant to highlight. So there have been a number of tools and resources mentioned here today. The question from Ian Darch is about how other people in your organization, or indeed other Connect Fund grantees, might be able to take advantage of this information. So we're obviously recording this webinar. It will be available on the Connect Fund YouTube channel, and we will disseminate that to you. But also I want to say to everyone to remember to use the Trello board, because the Trello board, the Connect Fund Trello board, is where there's a lot more information about all of the Connect Fund grant projects. There's information about all of the tools and resources. We will in fact post the link to this webinar, or certainly to the YouTube channel, where you can continue to see webinars that the Connect Fund produces, either jointly or on its own. And then there's other information about existing tools and resources there. So this is the perspective of Big Society Capital and Good Finance. There are other tools that are around social investment from NCBO, and other grantees will be producing tools and resources that might be useful, because all of those tools are open source and are available. And again, that's something that we'll be covering at the Learning Community event that will happen on the 8th of October. So that's a lot of information, but basically you can go to the YouTube channel, you can go to the Trello board, and you can watch this again to find out more about the tools and resources that are in the market.
Lovely, thank you. And just probably worth saying that Kira and I both have access to the Trello board as well. So you can contact us. Our details are also then scroll down for another question as well. You can contact us directly. We can have a look at the. So what else we've got? Another question here. This relates more to our own even the project we are running. Interestingly, case studies of organisations gain social investment to develop their website, which will result in enhanced capacity to sell products, for example. Okay, so a couple of things there. We are also working on some revenue model work case studies for Good Finance. So let me explain just a little bit here and how this, I think, context to your question, Tony. So one of the questions we get most often is, how can I even think about social investment if I'm not yet trading? And if I'm not trading, how do I know what type of trading might be the one that will work, and who has used social investment for the trading model? So one of the things that Kira and I are working on is, how can we repurpose the case studies that we already have available, so that if you are in the early stages, you can see what other organisations, either in your social issue area or in your geography, or it doesn't have to be either of those, but tend to think that's how peers tend to look, who else is doing stuff like me, where they've used social investment. So what are the prevalent revenue models that have used social investment? And we will be providing a way for you to be able to search those case studies, so that you can perhaps have a look at other organisations who perhaps work in the area of disability that have access to social investment. Your specific question about to develop the website, I think the things that I'm thinking about, things like...
so there's two that spring to mind, just to answer your question directly, Tony, in terms of the case studies that are on Good Finance. I believe Unforgettable is one on there. So they are a social business that provides, it's actually a website that sells goods for people with dementia or Alzheimer's. So that's a good one to look into. The second is a media cultured video, so case study video. So if you type in media cultured into the search panel, you'll be able to find a latest social video case study of that social enterprise. They use part of their social investment for the website, I believe. In terms of that, they're the only two I'm aware of on our website, but I'm sure there are many more that have used part of their investment to develop their websites, but it won't be explicit in the description of those.
There's probably a couple more, so if you want to contact Tony, we can perhaps give you some more individual examples for that. Just want to think about social investment. So question from Julian, thanks so much, it's been really useful. We've started to think about social investment for it to learn about where to get this information from, which will help develop our thinking area. Great, Julian, that's definitely the point of this. So I'm just going to put, we're nearly at time. Is there any more questions from anybody before I just try and do a quick summary? And also I've got 4 key asks really for anybody that's on the webinar, either watching live or going to watch later. I think we might have another one that's come up. One of the things with the chat box, you have to keep scrolling down.
Thanks, very helpful.
Just very helpful.
Lovely.
Thank you, Tony. So here's just a few things from me really, which is social investment from our perspective is all about making sure that we deliver for the people that are going to use it. So whether that is social enterprises or charities or infrastructure organisations. We all need to be comfortable, therefore we all need to have it presented to us in a language that we can understand. We are extremely keen to make sure that all of the things that we do and how we work with others are all about what the user needs. So busting myths is really important for us. Not long ago, 5 years ago, unless we were talking about £250,000 deals to buy a building, social investment was very inaccessible for many smaller organisations. So I think now, for particularly the voluntary and community sector or for smaller organisations, seeing that social investment can be relevant, with some of the smallest deals being at about £10,000, it's really important to understand all of your options. And I think from Kieran's stats, 40,000 unique views of Good Finance, over 12,000 views of the What is Social Investment animation, which I've tested on my 15-year-old son. He now knows what I do, so that's all good. And 3,000 social enterprises and charities have actually used repairable finance now. We are starting to get to a critical mass where this is something that we really should no longer ignore and think it's not for us without having the knowledge. So the asks from me would be 4 things. We are looking for hosts and partners to work with for Let's Talk Good Finance. We may or may not be able to support you immediately, but maybe in the future. But also we have the open source format, which we're happy to share. We also will be looking for future partners for Good Finance Live. So if it's something you think there might be demand for later on, then do try and get along to the pilots in September. We have open source data. I think what I would say is ask us if we already have something, share with us what you already have. Some of that comes from Big Society Capital around the size of a market, but we also have the case study things that we've talked about and some other information from Let's Talk Good Finance. We're happy to put out there and we'll definitely share on the Trello board. Case studies, we would love to have case studies from the future from Connect Fund projects. So there was a definite ask for future from us from there. And the other thing that we'd be really keen is that the profiling tool, which is it right for us, that's available through Let's Talk Good Finance. We're really keen for you to get comfortable with that, for you to understand what investors lend in your particular area. So you can use either the profiling tool with organisations, either for yourself or with organisations that really understand it. I know one of the Connect Fund projects, we're hoping to work with them around that. And you can use the investor listing to search by your geography or your social issue area. Do check that out so that you understand what's listed for your area. And also, of course, if we're missing anybody that's lending in your area and we don't know about them, do get in touch with Kieran at ISO. So we're really keen to get them listed on Good Finance so that this can be as inclusive as possible. So I think we're bang on time. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll be in touch very soon to share this webinar. Thank you very much for your contributions.
Thank you.